So the other day, Trump mentioned casually in a speech that he was giving that Guantanamo Bay is currently being set up with 30,000 beds to start shipping immigrants there. Now, I, for the life of me, could not wrap my mind around the fact that this was not getting much coverage. Nobody was talking about it. Democrats weren't bringing it up. Because, I'm old enough to remember the original Guantanamo Bay scandal when George W. Bush and Dick Cheney sent alleged, keyword, terrorists to Guantanamo because it's an extrajudicial prison and there is no rule of law, there is no due process, there is no habeas corpus, and liberals and Democrats exploded in outrage and anger over the fact that this was effectively a war on the American way of life. Not only that, it's a war on the Magna Carta. It's a war on the most basic human rights imaginable. And this was example one of many things that people use to say this administration are full of war criminals and warmongers and extremists, and they're insane. But now it feels like we've been so desensitized that this barely led to a peep in reaction to it. I was one of the only people who talked about it. We did a breaking news video on it, and I just, I'm losing it over here, bro. I'm losing it. How are people not following this, caring about this, talking about this? So now we learn, not only did he announce that, the migrant flights have already started. So this is in Politico. Pentagon plans to start migrant flights to Guantanamo this weekend. Here we go. The Pentagon expects to send 2 flights of migrants to Guantanamo Bay this weekend, the first step in President Donald Trump's plan to use the base for detaining people swept up in his crackdown on illegal immigration. The fine details are still getting worked out, according to 2 defense officials, but the planes likely will join another one headed to Peru as the military seeks to enact Trump's orders to deport thousands of people in the country illegally. Now, even if we were talking about, hey, they're sending undocumented immigrants there, even if that was the conversation, I would say that's still illegal, that's still unconstitutional, that's still a war on due process and habeas corpus. You're stripping people of their rights. This is an authoritarian hellhole, effectively. This is what you're doing. But putting that aside, we've already seen a bunch of stories where they detained U.S. veterans. They detained a Puerto Rican family, including a toddler. So these people are legal. You trust these people to make life and death decisions with no due process whatsoever? The whole point of due process is, hey, we need to make sure we get this right. And what Trump is doing is he's saying, forget due process, forget getting it right, we don't care. We're going to act first and think about it later. But the reality is they won't even think about it later. Out of sight, out of mind. Put some dark-skinned person in Gitmo and call it a day. The military has flown 8 flights so far, including 4 to Guatemala, 3 to Honduras, and 1 to Ecuador, all using military aircraft. But this is the first time migrants would head to the base in Cuba, which presents a unique set of legal and logistical challenges. I like the implication that they give a shit about legal or logistical challenges, that this concerns them even in the slightest. Trump issued an executive order Wednesday that instructs the Pentagon and Homeland Security Department to use the base for migrants. Defense officials have been scrambling since to come up with a plan to house up to 30,000 people, far more than the 780 detainees who stayed in a base detention camp during the peak of the war on terror. Now, by the way, most of those people had to be released. There was no process, there was no trial, not even military tribunals. They rounded up people wrongly, claimed they were terrorists. They were not terrorists. And then eventually had to slowly but surely let a bunch of them go. I'll never forget this because this was one of the first political videos I ever did. I believe it was a German citizen by the name of Murat Kurnaz who was in Pakistan. He was dragged off the streets of Pakistan, sent to Guantanamo Bay, of course, given no due process whatsoever. The German government had to get involved and say, what are you doing? The guy's not a terrorist. And eventually he had to be let go. This is what happened during the Bush administration. Under the guise of we're fighting terrorism, they trampled over civil liberties relentlessly, took away everybody's rights, and exposed themselves as warmongers and criminals. And now Trump is taking it even a step further. It's not even alleged terrorists. Now it's alleged undocumented immigrants. This gives the military another costly, short-notice mission, as officials also seek to meet a separate Trump order for more troops at the southern border. The officials were granted anonymity to speak on an evolving situation. Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, said Wednesday that ICE would be in charge of an expanded facility on Guantanamo, although details are still unclear. The military has traditionally assisted with guarding people housed at the base, but not at this scale. The base is intended to serve as a transit hub for migrants on their way to home countries, although it's not clear whether they will be able to easily return. See, now that's the real thing here. This is really indefinite detention. This is really indefinite detention. It's not like it's already set up and it's, hey, you're going to make a brief stop here or whatever. Nope. This is, we'll put them there and figure it out later. That is indefinite detention. No recourse, no due process, no questioning. They make a decision, they send you there, and you're cooked. Not legal. Let's be honest about that too. The other thing is, so in the past, this has been used as basically like a stop-through area where if they found migrants, Cuban or Haitian migrants, in the water, and it's actually important it's in the water because that's international, right? They would process them at Gitmo asylum claims and then send them away, right? This is so categorically different because these are people who are in the United States of America. Now, once you're in the United States of America, like it or dislike it, human rights apply, constitutional rights apply. That's it. Doesn't matter if you're an immigrant or not. Doesn't matter if you're here legally or not. There is a process. There is a process. That's how it works, right? And they're saying, forget that. No process, no constitutional rights. Even if you're in this country where you have rights, we're just going to ship you there and keep you there indefinitely. That is categorically different, and that is significantly more authoritarian. The base's detention facilities were designed to hold migrants the Coast Guard picked up at sea. That's what I was just describing. A small group of people, mostly Haitian and Cuban refugees, are currently housed at Guantanamo's Migrant Operations Center. If nothing else radicalizes you, this should. The idea that conservatives, who are supposed to believe in small government, right? Hey, we don't want a king. We don't want a monarch. We want small government. We want it to be responsible and controlled. This is effectively the powers of an emperor or a king, where the president, Trump, is saying, round up undocumented immigrants. Who cares if they are? They aren't, really. Send them there indefinitely. No due process. No recourse in the courts. Nothing. By the way, this is what happens when you don't make an example early on. When you don't say this is beyond the pale and unconscionable. The fact that Bush and Cheney were not prosecuted by the Obama administration for what they did at Guantanamo Bay now moved it to the realm of, oh, it's just a matter of opinion now. Some people say you can illegally and unconstitutionally hold immigrants at Guantanamo Bay in extrajudicial prison with no rights and it's pure authoritarianism. Some people say you can do that. Some people say you can't. But hey, who's going to stop them? Who's going to stop them? And the Supreme Court already said, if you're doing something, not even that's necessarily official, that you think is an official act, you're allowed to do it. So here we are. He's taking advantage of that. And he's using it however the fuck he deems fit. And who's going to be there to speak up for these people? Again, I haven't heard a peep out of the Democrats. I haven't heard much from the media at all. Who's going to be there to speak up for these people? Could be a U.S. veteran. Could be somebody wrongly dragged. Could be somebody who's a child. Could be somebody who's already been here for 6 years and they have a job and they're productive, but they said, hey, we're gonna send you there. Could be a mistaken identity example. We don't know. We don't know. But I never want to hear another fucking word about law and order from these people ever again. Never. Never. Because this is an outright war on law and order and the Constitution and reason and due process and habeas corpus. And this is what you do. Let's call it what it is. This is what fascists do. This is fascism. There's no two ways about it. There's no way around it. That's what we're witnessing. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.